Oh,
No,
that's all
this is
yours.
what I'm going to be reading.
Welcome.
Can you believe it's Christmas week? I mean,
No.
And
I mean, Hank this morning was like, for Christmas Eve, you could just tell me what my gift is.
No, I said you can tell me if you have it.
You're looking
You
for...
said what?
I said you should tell me if you have it.
Oh, you're looking for leads, so you could go looking for it.
So I can go open up the package.
Well, I told him like the dad version of an answer, which is, it's a big box of antiques and vintage clothing, because I'm into that and he's not into that.
No.
And it was a fib.
And Hank is growing so much. We're talking about he wears the same size shoes now.
Almost,
which is just
he's half a
kind
size
of
behind
amazing.
me.
So we're just
You have to keep your pride.
it's okay.
It's just a matter of time.
It's fun to watch it change. So what we wanted to do was, we absolutely love the conversations going on over in Facebook on the Stamping on the Back Porch page. And each week we put a question up that has to do with our podcast. And then also on the video on YouTube. And it is so fun to read the answers. So what we did is I just gathered a few of these I thought we could just discuss. So today we're just going to be reading and talking about some of the comments you've left. I have pages here, and I could have had pages more. So.
And mixed in, I feel like we should each share what this has meant to us.
Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting how all of us have probably been reminded of something that we have forgotten.
Yes.
And that's like a really nice thing that we didn't expect.
You know, I think that was one of the, anyway, I'll come to that comment that just basically said that, and I thought that is so cool, because I think this is for all of us, kind of to sit back and remember, be reminded of things. So I'm just going to start, what got the most comments, of course, which isn't a surprise, is the nativity and food. And I think those are kind of the two key parts of Christmas, so it kind of does make sense, doesn't it? I'm going to start with, Carol wrote, "What beautiful Christmas stories. I always had family Christmas, and we played out the birth of Jesus so the kids would know. You know, they did that every year. For the past 15 years, my health has been deteriorating, so I've had to step back. My nieces and nephews comment on how they have missed coming to my home every year. I love this so much." I wanted to start with this because I just thought, what a tribute to just memories. And the fact that her nieces and nephews are still letting her know that. I think that is such... Sometimes we can just move on in life, like one season ends and another starts. And the fact that they're all still letting her know that they miss that. And it's a tribute to what she created for those memories.
Yeah.
And Karen and I were just talking today about how we're glad that you took over Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's really
Which,
nice.
how many years has that been now? Like maybe 3, 4?
Yeah.
And by taking over...
It was after
it
was after my mom could no longer get into our house.
Right.
Even with the help that we realized we
so
needed
you
to
host...
go there.
So Christmas Eve
yes.
is spent with our family.
Yes.
And Christmas Day is spent with my wife's family.
Yeah.
Yep.
And until 4 or 5 years ago, you hosted Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And now we host
Yes.
Christmas Eve.
And we used to have both of our moms in their walkers, Johnny in his wheelchair, all crowded in our little house. But as time passed and she could no longer come, we could no longer get John in the house because we don't have a ramp. We only have 3 steps, but it's still, we're older.
And
Well, and I feel like
And
that's full circle of
Yeah.
like, you know, what you just read.
Yes.
Traditions go through like a generational, like, you gain, you lose, families go through that. That's part of like why we're doing this, is to like
Yes.
take a moment and talk about the past right now, because it's not always going to be true or remembered, and it's important to remember.
And all of us, and the grandkids were young then, and I just remember them calling in and around between the, the walkers, all the stuff, and the wheelchair, all this stuff in the way. And what fun memories. That would have been you. But for us, just kind of watching that commotion. But it's true, now that season's over, but it is so fun at Christmas to remember that. So
it's being replaced by us getting older.
I was helping with a Christmas letter of friends of ours yesterday, and a line I loved is every year it's a new Christmas tree, but it's the same memories, same ornaments, and it's a time for like you to go back into that space of celebrating like the life story of a family.
I love that. That totally makes sense. And we were just both saying how we're glad we were ready for that tradition to pass.
Yeah.
I said, we love that we're not hosting, and it's just fun to come to your house, and I'll be out in the garage and kind of have a whole different set of things. So
You at home don't know
Oh, yeah.
what the garage is.
Yeah.
We'll tell
at some
you
point,
at some
we'll
point.
show you, and we will put some pictures up.
It's weird because I have no recollection of you guys ever hosting Christmas Eve.
Isn't that
I mean,
interesting? Yes.
I would say it was probably around COVID. Like,
Oh, because sure,
I think
yes.
we like came
Yeah.
here, and then there was one year where we like were all taking it very seriously, and like we didn't get together.
That was the first year we came to your garage, and we just ate too. One
Yeah,
of those years,
yeah,
ate
you just
Chinese
came-
takeout outside,
Yes.
all bundled in our coats.
Yeah. And then ever since then, so it's probably been
Yeah.
what 4 years now, 5
Yeah.
years. This would be the
It
fifth.
probably has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, when we're talking about this, remind people how much those memories mean. The precious part of her story that her nieces and nephews still tell her that. And I think Christmas is such a time to not just think things, but to really honor someone by telling them. I remember the days we did this. I loved my memories doing this with you. Just is very meaningful.
And if you ask, what's your favorite thing about this holiday? For me, it's remembering.
And for
and that's
for
because-
kids, it's anticipating.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
like it's like this
Two
weird
sides of
perfect
going
balance.
and a kind of eight. Absolutely.
And
I think that-
remembering that we used to have oyster stew, and I hated it.
Uh-huh. But now you're glad you did it. It's part of the memory. So Sue Ditt said, I used to get her up around 6 and light the tree, make sure all the lights and candy canes were on the tree. I'd sneak to the record player, start the music, and then run and ring the bell, and then run to bed and pretend to be sleeping. I love this. I think, what a fun thing. Our very best Christmas was when they were in high school and college, and they still ran into our bedroom and jumped on the bed. My very favorite Christmas memory. I love that too, not aging out of something really precious like that.
Are you saying you want me to
Yeah.
wake you up on Christmas morning?
We were thinking of Hank.
But I love that they
Yeah, I
still
love
did
that,
that in
yeah.
college and all that. I just
And it's
how
important.
precious.
It's a gift to the kids too to get
Yep.
to be the like the joy of Christmas being experienced through that lens.
So Sharon Shaw said that, I love this. This is like taking some ideas that we did to a whole nother level. Our children love that we sent them to hunt for their Christmas presents. So you can't see this, but it's just little tiny pictures of all the rooms labeled. There's all these nativity sets in different rooms. So they took pictures of the nativity scenes they have in the house, and they created a treasure hunt. Once they had identified which room they found the nativities in, then we would tell them what room had their presents. So it's like, what a
You
fun
have to
game.
work for it.
Really enjoy that podcast and hope my children hold our traditions in their hearts. Yeah,
Yep.
It's kind of that same thing. So these are about some other nativity sets. Jackie Holtkamp said she's a very special ceramic set that her dad made in the 80s. I put it up every year with the help of my daughters as they were growing up, and now with the help of my grandchildren. It's just the best part. And again, this just comes down to the memories. Dawn said I bought my first one in 1980 with my own money, and it was a precious moment. She had a picture of it. I now have 45 nativity sets from all of our travels, but this is still my most precious one and is a prominent place at Christmas. Several people mentioned travels, and I thought that's really an interesting thing. If you love Christmas, to think of nativity as presented by other countries is really a cool thing to collect.
Well, your parents went to Israel,
Yes,
and they came home with things that were connected to Jesus. And
someone here said that they went to Israel and got their olive wood thing there. I love this. This is very precious. Gay King said, one of the most unusual in my collection, and incredibly hard to photograph, so she tried. This is made from Kentucky coal. It reminds me of the miners who have made their living descending deep into a dark mine each workday. They surely are grateful when they return to the light at the surface at the end of the day. When we are afraid of the darkness in the world, help us to gratefully turn towards your light. Amen.
Yeah, that's powerful.
That is just powerful. And what the significance in made of that coal.
Was it
is.
like made of coal?
It's made of coal.
Not just
Nativity.
coal drawings, but
No, made of
Wow.
coal. And what she says about it, the meaning behind them.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I just Ginny Kaplan says in 1978 her grandma came to visit her. Her husband was deployed. There were several service stories, and so they painted ceramic pieces. And they became our nativity. It took many hours to do, and it brought our children and great grandmother closer together. They all did that. The white animals were in the picture, so there's all these painted ones, and then there's some white ones. They were gifts sent the next year for the children and I to paint. Notice we never did. But now it's a tradition for those animals to be white. And I love that. Because the memory is in that initial time with the grandmother. Oh, I just love that.
I mean, if they were sheep, then they should be.
Then they should be. But I love the die casting as part of that story.
The interesting, like the song "I'll Be Home for Christmas."
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we take for granted what it means to have a home, and like Christmas is a time to appreciate what it means to have a home. And like it's so interesting how many movies, songs, stories talk about the importance of being able to go home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Christmas is
Yep.
really about that.
Yep. And even if home is in your memories.
Yeah, even if
yes.
Even
It
think of the
is,
past, it's still part of you.
Lorraine Brandt wrote, "There's a little skunk figure in our nativity scene. Years ago, when my mother-in-law was still living, she had a little iron skunk. These like iron toys that we have,
Yeah.
what my dad had, along with a few other iron objects that were popular then. My husband and his two brothers used to love to tease Mom by hiding the skunk in the nativity scene to see how long it would take for her to notice. Sometime later, my husband wrote a kid's story about a skunk in a manger to teach children who felt they were unworthy that Jesus came for all creatures, even the unlovely. It became a tradition to put the skunk in the manger as a reminder to us all."
Yeah, I love that.
Boy, what a meaning
So cool.
of Christmas.
When turning a
These
joke,
stories.
like
Yeah.
a little like challenge to the mom, into like a profound idea.
Yes. Yes, and the fact of taking that, and they wrote a story. I think that is so cool. Jill writes, "As a child, my parents had a 3-piece nativity set from Frank's Nursery and Crafts. I inherited them, and then I added animals. Frank's went out of business. Years later, I found the shepherd and sheep from that same series. And then later, I found 3 wise men on eBay, all from the same series. I just feel so close. Every year I put out straw, and I feel just so close to Christ and my parents with that. What I love is the story, the journey of the adding
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the hunt and the...
The representation of a nativity scene is a journey.
It is.
And her nativity scene was a journey.
And they don't all show up at the same time.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool.
Now, are you saying that these were little ones or big ones that you put in your front yard?
No,
From Frank's.
these are all nativity. No,
Okay,
Frank's.
Frank's.
And the picture she had was a very one that I remember from back in the day, probably like parents. So it was really fun. People did post a bunch of their nativity sets to think about it, but we're just talking about them here, and I just think the stories behind them is just what makes. Those are the things that are just so special. And here was Tammy, who just said. Tammy DeWitt says, "I love these podcasts. Your traditions bring so many memories to mind." That's what I was looking at, because that totally fit what we
It's
were
the whole
talking
point.
about.
I mean, for me, just to like quickly like chime in, I feel like I'm making new memories with my son.
Yeah.
He's making memories with his father and grandparents, but I've also been reminded of so many things from my childhood, and I've learned things about your childhoods that I didn't know.
So Hank, put on you. Are you enjoying listening to stories that you've never heard of?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to learn that you guys hosted, like,
Yes.
He's still
And
stuck
that-
on
he's
that.
still-
less
yes.
than 6 years ago, and I
I
have no
know.
recollection of that.
Yeah. Because it was traumatic.
How fun is
you
that?
are at that interesting age where like year by year you'll remember everything a year ago, but it is vanishing behind you. But now you're almost 13. My solid memories that weren't like from photographs or stories that they told me probably go back to around your age. This is when things will start to stick. You'll start to remember things now for a long time.
But I feel like there was a story you told me. I was probably like 4, and on Christmas you got me a present that I liked so much I didn't even want to open the rest of mine. And I just went.
Do you
went
remember what
upstairs
it
to play with
was?
it. No, Mom told me that story, but I feel like that couldn't have happened here. Like according to
That-
the timeline, Christmas Eve should have been hosted here.
Okay, so this is where there's a separation. The presents we gave you in our living room.
Oh.
But Christmas Eve was spent here.
Okay.
Okay, now moving on from Nativity. So this is Karen Sheffert was saying, we did the thing with whoever had the almond in the rice pudding, put the baby Jesus in the manger. She said her mom there were 4 girls, and so they used a blanched almond, and the one who got it got to open the first gift of Christmas. And I thought, it's like a variation on a theme, and I thought, isn't that fun? And okay, so we're moving into food. Deb Peterson says, it was so much fun listening to Norwegian food memories. I made lefse for Thanksgiving, make more for Christmas. I also make krumkake. We always have oyster stew for Christmas Eve. I will admit I love oyster stew, but not so much the oysters. I don't put many in my bowl.
Well,
You want the broth.
The broth.
well, do you know what the broth is? Is milk and butter.
Oh, well, this is not much
And maybe
wrong
some
with
stock? Or is it
I
just
don't
milk
think
and
so.
butter? Yeah.
Well, at least the one that my mother made.
Yeah.
It was milk and butter, mostly milk,
Well, you did
with oysters.
you
and
did grow up on a
cloves.
dairy farm.
Yep,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Amy Van Heusen said, in our circle of acquaintances, I don't know many others who make fruit soup, which
Fruit
that's the way to talk
soup,
about fruit
yeah.
soup.
Yeah.
We would do that fruit soup. Or banquet. It says banquet is just a Dutch pastry. That I've never heard of. I would love to try that because I love pastries. Wouldn't be Christmas for our family without these. We have sent ingredients to our child living in Alaska to make fruit soup. Our children living in Papua New Guinea do what they must to collect the ingredients so they can carry on these food traditions. How powerful, no matter where you go in the world, they're going to bring that.
And it's not the sustenance. It's not the food itself that you're like searching for and like recreating. Like, it's the tradition and memories.
One of my favorite parts of fruit soup is tapioca.
Yeah.
And I was we were just talking to somebody at a restaurant about their beverages, and they said that they have tapioca in such and such a drink, but it's that bubble tea.
Yeah.
Bubble tea now
Yeah.
is really a popular thing, and it's tapioca.
Hank's a fan.
Is he?
Ah. I haven't had enough to learn to like it yet, I guess. I think a lot of things are acquired
kind of
taste because I just
agnostic
tried
about
it
it.
and I...
It's like fine, but
Okay, Susan Bobak says, oh my gosh, Tim, I had an Uncle Ole too. We had Norwegian on both sides of the family. We ate krumkake. Fadiman, we hadn't talked about
Yeah,
that.
fireman.
Yep. All of that's so very fun. Susan Ditt said, my husband and I have saved every card we've received from each other for 54 years of marriage
Whoa.
and a few years before. So this is a little aside, but I had to throw this in for the humor. To us, it's very important. To our kids, it will be one more thing to get rid of. That's accepting truth.
And here, for me, it's really important, but for Karen, get rid of it.
And I had mentioned when we were young, we didn't have pizza, all this kind of stuff we had. And Marilyn Durbin says...
you didn't have... Wait. You didn't even have pizza?
When we were young, we had to make it.
I
This
know.
is what Marilyn
We've
said.
talked about how you didn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
a lot of things we have now, but pizza?
Chef Boyardee pizza. We made that when my dad wasn't going to be home for dinner. I never had bought pizza till I was a teenager. No, we never, ever. And Marilyn is my age. We were talking.
Chef
And
Boyardee
Chef Boyardee is
made
what I said, but it was
pizza?
there was a box thing you could get.
No, it was
a-
you put it together.
You made the crust and you did all this, and then you put the sauce on. It was a kit. It was like making a cake, making a pizza.
Let's
that
cut
wild?
to Hank right now because he's so sad he wasn't born 75 years ago.
You couldn't just like buy pizza?
No, and now it's a go-to food everywhere.
So what's funny is if Jamie and I, like Hank's mom, if we both go out, Hank gets to pick a restaurant and we just have food delivered to him. He will like just look at like a menu on his phone and be like, can you order me this from this restaurant? My, how the times have changed.
Yeah. Oh yes.
I know, it is pretty hilarious. And we have never ordered food from a restaurant to be delivered to our house. That would be a non-thing. We wouldn't even know how to do it.
It's probably once a week for him.
I know. So anyway, it's pretty hilarious.
Like once in a while, once in 50 years, twice in 50 years, we had pizza delivered. But that's because I don't want to go out.
But do you remember what pizza was for us growing, like when I was a kid?
Then
we had
it was common.
pizza every Sunday night.
Tombstone.
No,
Little Caesars.
Little Caesars. And
That's right.
Sunday
And the
night,
Disney
when I
movie.
was little, Disney used to produce made-for-TV family films, and they would show them on Sunday nights on, like, NBC or whatever. I don't remember what channel it was on, but I looked forward to that every week. And we never watched much TV, so it was like pizza and...
TV.
And you remember
I
when...
look forward to it, too. It was so easy.
When the dietitian or the homeopath took me off of dairy, I started getting my own pizza because it would have no cheese, and you take the cheese away, it's not as filling,
That's
and
true.
it would just be
Very
a
true.
cheeseless mushroom pizza.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So when Karen and I get our own pizzas, she has cheese on. It really weighs twice as much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
As one without.
I mean that's
Yeah.
why you were as a family you would never have just bought me whatever I wanted, but losing the cheese became a gateway for me getting my own pizza.
Yes, absolutely. So Moo's mom, whoever that is, says, how wonderful to listen to you guys. If you need any Sven and Oli jokes, just let me know. My husband knows way too many. Thank you for sharing. I'm
I
going,
feel like
"No,
we
thank
do.
you.
No,
thank
I
you."
feel like we need at least one.
Okay,
Pick the best one.
Okay, send us the best one. That was pretty funny. Carol Benning said when they would go to their grandma and grandpa's house on Christmas Eve, her Aunt Dorothy would have a Waldorf Astoria cake for the kids to eat. But first they had to sing happy birthday to Cousin Fred since it was his birthday. I'm reading this thinking they're going to sing, when you were little, we'd sing happy birthday to Jesus and have a cake, but they sing happy birthday to Fred. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Okay.
Fred.
Remind me what Waldorf Astoria is. I mean, besides a hotel in New York, isn't it?
She said a red velvet.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's more to it than that or not. But this is pretty precious. Myra Souter said my dad loved stack cakes. So my mom and I baked one every year with 7 or 8 layers for him.
Whoa.
I don't even know what a
That's
stack
love.
cake is, but that's love.
That's
yes.
involved.
And I think, and what a fun tradition. Be that
Yeah.
one time a year they would do that for him. I thought that was...
Don't get any ideas,
I
Hank.
don't-
I'm
that does
not
not
making
sound
you. That's too many
That
layers.
doesn't sound good.
And this brought back memories. Gail Peterson said, this isn't an unusual food, but a cookie recipe I only make at Christmas is pepper nuts. I think that is an unusual
Yeah.
food.
Oh.
And I love pepper nuts.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't make
Me
them.
too.
Tim's mom always made them.
Oh.
They're so good.
A black pepper in them, not overly sweet.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Most people don't care for these cookies because of all the spices.
Oh.
What are
Oh, I.
And
It's-
I love them.
They're really hard, crunchy.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
What would be similar? That would be a reference point.
is it just pepper on nuts?
No.
It was sweet. It was on a bed of sweet, but it had
What's a bed of sweet?
metaphorically
And it's a little round, really hard.
really
Kinda
hard and
round. You
little,
can dunk
and
it
you'd
in
really
coffee.
have to, bite into
Well,
it.
and if you had
And they would dissolve in your mouth if you
Yeah.
just put it in your mouth and
and if you had false teeth, you had to dip them in coffee
yeah.
and then eat them.
Yeah.
And your mom would have a whole tin of them.
Oh,
We
yeah.
eat them over the time. I
looked
never
forward-
had them before. I love that.
I looked forward to that every Christmas for sure.
That is awesome. Heather Bree says, I make sure to do some sort of sweet potato casserole and corn casserole. It makes me feel like my grandma is still a part of the dinner, even though she's been gone 5.5 years. And again, that is that memory and what you're doing in honor of someone. And you remember them, you talk about them. I think that is very cool. Laura B said, my favorite aunt used to make the best divinity candy. After she moved to heaven and I was older, I tried to make it a couple of times, but it came out more like taffy. I also
I
think
don't know
that's
what that.
interesting.
I don't know what that is.
A divinity is almost like a
Fluffy?
meringue kind of
Yeah.
a
It's like
kind of a
airy,
thing.
Okay.
real light.
But it's
I
interesting
think.
how sometimes you remember something. My grandma made the best kind of big, soft sugar cookies. We've never found, even my mom, we could never find a recipe like that again. And she remembers it well. But it's kind of interesting because you don't know what it was that they did special, but we have never been able to recreate it. So that's just kind of fun memory in its own. And then this was from Phyllis, and I thought, this was such a great idea too. And I thought, what a memory. This is kind of like take on scrapbooking. I mean, Phyllis Monroe. When my kids were growing up, I had them make a family wish book the day after Thanksgiving. One child decorated the front cover, the other decorated the back cover. They used Christmas cards from previous years and anything else they could get their hands on. Each family member had a page to put down their wishes. The children would be reminded to not be greedy and keep their list short, so they're writing down their Christmas wishes. It made it easy for me to select one or two items that I knew the grandparents could afford and find easily to tell them what each child wanted. That book made it easier for their father and I to do our own shopping and making of gifts. I still have one or two of those precious books, and I keep them stored in the holiday decorations. I just say, what a unique idea. I've never heard of anyone doing that and sitting down and creating that together. And then the fact that you have a couple of them left is just precious.
I feel like everyone that, receives Christmas, like, now it's more like printed, like photo collages with like season's greetings and like maybe like a handwritten inscription. There comes a point when you're like, it's time to recycle these, but that's a great way to recycle them.
It is.
Let them become something else.
And as part of, it's also kind of an art project. You're looking for favorite cards. You're all around the table. You're together. You're writing out your wishes.
And so funny to see what your kids would choose.
Yes.
Like you're thinking about who means the most to you. Your kids are maybe looking at it more like, I like this photo.
Yes. And back in the day when we would do lists would be short and not a lot of real expensive things, so it's just kind of a memory of that whole thing. And you would go shopping from a choice. I think a lot of gift buying is changed now. You kind of pick something major. I think it's just changed. But I remember it was so cute one year. You guys made Christmas lists when you were young, and Esther had put a couple of name brand things down for clothing she would like. And then Leah, who was much younger, went into her closet and made her list, and she put down her things, and hers were all like Target brand or something. But it was just so cute. I wish I'd kept that because it's just so funny. Because of course, she's my big sister. She has no idea what a brand is. But I just thought, very precious. And then just two really special comments I wanted to say here. Amanda Bach, you're so sweet. She said, "Excuse me, why am I crying not once but twice during this? Just a pleasure to watch you all. I'm looking forward to many more episodes. I love the family aspect. I am delighted to hear your stories." And Jill said, "How special." So this is to me personally. She said, "I so enjoy the expressions on Karen's face. Such a joy." And I thought, that's just a comment on you seeing how much we are enjoying this, sharing our memories, sharing your memories, kind of finding this place in the world where we can enjoy memories and enjoy family times.
Do you notice that I start crying several times? Mm-hmm. I'm very emotional when it comes to touching stories.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel, like since we started doing this, before we actually began, but after the idea, I went through the period of what have I gotten myself into? But, last Sunday, right around this time, you and I were talking between games at Hank's basketball tournament, and we were just saying how special this has felt and how much it's meant to us. And I feel emotional about it too. It feels, I'm really grateful we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what it's going to become or what we're trying to do even.
No,
but
it's the unknown, but we are so grateful for you who come along with the journey, and we just love your input shapes what we do, because this is about what we're about, kind of the meaning of life, and that's the little things. It's the and relationships matter.
Yeah, and tell us what you want to hear more about.
Yep. And you can see we do love getting your comments. So we ready for the card of the week?
Yes.
Yeah. I received a Christmas card from Sharon Shaw, and she put a note in there saying, "Thinking of you this Christmas as this will be your first Christmas without your mother." Mm-hmm. And I just thought, recognizing that in anyone's life is so personal, so sweet, and so touching. And I think there's so many people who have lost a special person in their life, and people say that, you know, you go through that first year, and then after that, people tend to forget. And just the thought that people would take the time to remember that. So just a reminder to us all. So